This video has been uploaded by Truth Seeker on YouTube.
Um, Another question. Do we plan our lives before we come down here? Do we kind of, as humans, or multidimensional beings, set up a plan for this life and agree on which souls to participate with in this life? For instance, whom we're gonna marry and what family we're going to go in, be born into, and what our main lesson would be?
So yes, you create a blueprint for yourself. And this lifetime in particular is a little different because you're going through this integration process. And this is kind of the nexus point where all this energy is coming together. So from our vantage point, we would say that it's almost as if you had a pre-shift and a post-shift blueprint. And it's almost as if you have two blueprints for yourself because you're moving into a different paradigm, a different way of playing the game. And so you needed a different blueprint. So really up until the end of 2012, as you entered into 2013, 2014, you started activating this secondary blueprint. All right. So for many of you in this time, you might feel like the old version of you it doesn't fit any longer. The things that you thought you wanted to do with your life, the things that you thought that you were passionate about, all of that started to change and alter because you are bringing on this new blueprint, if you will. Now, yes, you create a blueprint, but it doesn't mean that you don't alter it. And you can think about it how you would build a house. There are certain rooms that you want in the house, but how you choose to decorate it or renovate it, for that matter, is entirely up to you when you're here. So this lifetime also, in particular, is a little different as far as your relationships go, because there were so many things that you wanted to integrate, that you wanted to release judgment from many, many lifetimes with other people, that you left a lot of that to be very, very flexible because you knew it would be a very rapid growth process and you weren't sure where you were going to be. So in other words, were you going to be at a particular place at a particular time to meet up with someone else? Now, there are many people who will be your match, all right? It's not that you just have one person and that's it, especially this lifetime. That there are many people with whom you can experience deep and boundless love with, and it was, where are you at? In order to have a relationship, you have to have a certain number of points of common interest, of vibrational alignment, in order to sustain the relationship. And if someone else is not working on the same stuff at approximately the same time, then you're not a match. But you had backup plan after backup plan after backup plan for yourself. So, you stayed flexible. And those contracts, if you will, they're very malleable. You all think of contracts as being eternally binding, but really it's akin to you making a choice to have coffee with a friend. And if that friend can't show up, it's not a big deal. You either go by yourself or somebody else shows up to join you. So you make those adjustments. You make those adjustments.
I
All right.
see.
So does that help answer that
Yeah,
question?
yes. But I'm thinking, is it so that some contracts are more solid than others?
Yes, there are certain things that you were really clear that you wanted to achieve. And so some things really you'll feel a very strong pull or very strong guidance that something is definitely on your list to experience.
Hmm.
All right. But yes, you choose your family. You get exactly the parents that you want to help reinitialize all your limiting beliefs because they've got those programs going on. Your genetic line has those programs going on. So you choose all of that to get you started, to get the ball rolling. And yes, there may be certain things in particular ways that you want to do, but this lifetime is actually pretty flexible. That's also something else we want to talk about very briefly. For many of you, you have it in your mind that if you don't get something in a particular way, you're never going to get it. So this we see as an issue in your process of manifestation and how you perceive things to be manifest and created. So if what you want is to experience freedom, to experience abundance, to experience passion, for instance, and you're thinking that it's a job and the job looks a particular way, it's got to be with this company, it's got to be this position. If you get locked into the form, then you're missing out, because your part in creation is about the modulation of frequency. It's about pulsing out frequency, observing the frequency as it's presented to you in physical form, and stepping out to engage in it. That's all that is your responsibility for manifestation. The universe is responsible for bringing the form to you. So you can also think of it this way, that the gifts that you want, the abundance, the freedom, the passion, it's a gift in a box. All right, the box is the form that it's coming in, and you've got it in your mind that it's a striped box with a big red bow on it. So you're watching for that to come by. You're watching. You're not paying attention to the frequency. You're not monitoring your vibration. You're looking for the form. Well, 49 boxes have gone by with exactly what you wanted vibrationally, but not in the box that you were asking for. And so you missed all those opportunities, which would have been exactly what you wanted, and you had to wait a longer period of time to get it, because the universe had to arrange it in that form, which required a different timing and a different energy expenditure. So it's really important that you let go of this idea of form, whether it's relationships, whether it's a person that you feel that you have to be in relationship with, whether it's a job, or whether it's an experience. Focus on the vibrational essence of what you want, and then be open to the form that it appears in, because sometimes the form that you get can be even greater than what you asked for or even imagined. And when you create your blueprint, it's based off of these vibrational frequencies. It's not based on a form. All right?
Okay, so kind of surrendering to something bigger, that something bigger will help you and take over in a way, instead of, because someone are saying, you should know what to order in a way, like you go into Starbucks and you want a coffee latte with extra foam, and then you'll get that from the universe, that you have to order something from the universe. But you're saying more just surrender and just trust that it will come in the best possible form for you.
You can do both. You can focus on the form as you're imagining it, but you also have to generate the feeling of having it. The feeling state is vital to the manifestation process. So it's not just the picturing. It's the feeling as if you're having it. That's the vibrational essence. What would it feel like? What's the quality? And then you can see it in your mind, because that helps you sometimes get very clear about the vibration. But then you have to let go of your expectation that that's exactly how it's going to come. It's the expectation that creates the pain for you. Because there really is no such thing as failure. Failure is when your expectation of a vibrational experience doesn't match. And to be honest, when you step into any experience, it is never going to be identical to what you imagined. It never is. What you consider to be successful is when it's relatively close. If it's very different from what you imagined in your mind, then you give that the label of failure. What we would encourage you all to do is to just simply be curious about life. What would it be like if? What is this frequency like? Then you're not expecting. When you expect and you are attached to that expectation, that's when you have all kinds of problems, because the expectation is not about the frequency. Your expectation is really attached to a form. If you all really look at it, if you focus on being happy and joyous and experiencing the qualities, you'll find that you have them and that you are feeding that. But what creates the problem is when you expect it in a particular form. Now, we also want to say one other thing here, and that is that when you are desiring something, pay particular attention to what it is that is driving you. Are you attracted to something because you're curious about it and you wonder what would it be like to step into that frequency? Or are you attracted to it because you want to avoid this other thing over here that doesn't feel so good? So if you are driven, let's say abundance, for example, I want money because I don't want to be poor and suffer. If that's how you've got it set up, guess what you're going to create? You're going to create more of that suffering because you're holding judgment, and that creates an attraction. But when you're curious, you're not attached to anything, and it's much easier for you to manifest and create. Sometimes what you ask for is of a very high vibrational nature, and in order to receive what you're asking for, you have to maintain the frequency. So if you've asked for something that's very high, and you're saying, well, it's just not here, this stuff doesn't work, pay attention to what is showing up, because that is showing you what needs to be integrated in order to elevate your frequency to get you back to that delivery address for what you wanted. All right, so what you need is always in the moment. That's why, when you all ask us, what do I need to do to go through the ascension process? We say there are only two things. You need to be grounded and connected to your body. And for most of you that are connected and drawn to us, you are not grounded and connected in your bodies because you want to be out of your bodies. You're usually very sensitive. And one of the coping mechanisms was to shut off some of those lower chakras so you didn't have to feel. You weren't feeling as much what was going on in density. So you've got to be grounded and connected to your body because two things happen. One, you're going to have an awareness of what's really going on, how you're feeling, what's going on, and also you're going to be able to remember and retain information as you're receiving it from the higher realms. So you've got to ground and connect, and then just be present in the moment. If you're doing that, everything else, and we mean absolutely everything else, takes care of itself. If you are going through your day and you are thinking about the future or the past, and it's not a time that you have set aside to really examine all of that, then you are resonating at some level of fear. You're operating from the ego because you should be present in the moment. If you're present in the moment, you're in the heart center. Otherwise, you're in the operating system of the mind. And if you're thinking about the future, it tends to be control. If you're thinking about the past, it's shame, blame, or there's shame, blame, or guilt that you're holding on to that you haven't let go of. All right. The more often you check in, where am I? Am I daydreaming about how I'm going to respond to my friend as soon as she's done talking? You're operating out of fear. All right. That's a subtle level of control. You want to be able to control what you're saying so that you don't look stupid, or that you don't want her to respond in a negative way to what you're saying, or that you need to think about it to make sure that you are accepted or safe. That's subtle control, and most of you play this out. But that looks very different on the surface to you trying to control your partner because you want a particular kind of food for dinner and you're trying to manipulate them into deciding for Chinese for dinner. All right, it looks very different, but it's the same underlying frequency. In some ways, my needs aren't going to be met, or I'm not going to be safe, I'm not going to be loved, I'm not going to be accepted. All right, so just have an awareness. The more you can check in with yourself to see, where am I vibrating? Am I present in the moment? No, I'm not. All right, great. Let me bring myself back to my present. How do I do that? I put myself in my heart center. I think of something that makes me smile. 5 seconds later, you're back in the present. You're not going to stay there for most of you. You're going to drop out and you'll go back up. It's an ebb and a flow to this entire process. So don't beat yourself up to say, why can't I stay there? Because as you go up to those higher levels, anything that is unlike that starts to come up to be processed. And that drops you out. It gets your attention and it drops you out. So you're going to go through this process. You'll go up and you'll go down. And each time you go up, hopefully you stay up higher. You go up higher and you stay there longer. And when you drop, it's not as far and not for as long. Mm-hmm. All right? So be kind to yourselves. Mm-hmm.